Have you ever wondered what happens when the hero in your family is actually the one who plants the deepest seeds of fear? I used to believe that if you just loved enough, family would always be the safest place in the world. But then, in trying to save my little sister from illness, I accidentally opened the door to the darkest part of my own bloodline. My story isn't the journey of a hero, it's the journey of a sister alone. As her family turned their backs, fighting against a cold legal system and a whole society that instinctively sides with the powerful, just because he played the good guy role so perfectly. If you've ever thought that evil only comes from strangers, stay with me until the end of this story, because sometimes it's your own family who hides the darkest secrets. Chapter 1, The Nightmare, begins with my own family. I never thought that saving my little sister's life would lead to a tragedy even worse than death. Sienna. My younger sister was only 7 years old when her skin started to turn a frightening, sickly yellow. At first I thought maybe she had hepatitis, or was just lacking some kind of vitamin. But when the doctor looked at her test results, he didn't say a single word. He just took us into a private room and started explaining using clinical cold-blooded terms that didn't even sound real. Sienna was in end-stage liver failure. She would need a liver transplant within 2 months, or else. I remember I couldn't breathe for a few minutes after hearing that. I'm a nurse. I know just how difficult liver transplants can be, and I know one cold hard fact: unless you're white, have top-tier insurance, live in a wealthy neighborhood, and have a Prada bag hanging off your arm, the organ donor waitlist is basically just a cruel joke. I was the first to get tested, not a match, so I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I picked up the phone and called every single member of my family. My mom was the first. She laughed softly and said, "Bikini season's coming up. I don't want a scar on my stomach." My dad, "I don't like hospitals." My brother, Mike, "Can't take time off work." I had to try not to laugh out loud because everyone knows he's unemployed. My sister-in-law said she'd already paid for her yoga retreat, and it was non-refundable. I went home. Faked a smile faked. Being positive faked, like I hadn't just been abandoned by my own family. I held Sienna close as she drifted off to sleep. "I promise someone will help you," I whispered. "I don't believe in miracles." But that night, something strange happened. Jessie called me. My cousin, the one the whole family cut off 2 years ago because she started an OnlyFans account after her divorce. I couldn't care less. But the rest of my family acted like she'd brought some contagious disease into the bloodline. I heard about Sienna. Jessie said, her voice hoarse from crying, "I want to get tested. If I'm a match, I'll donate." I remember collapsing against the wall and sobbing after that call. Jessie, the so-called shame of the family, was the only one in our entire clan willing to step up and save my little sister's life. 2 weeks later, the doctor announced they'd found a compatible donor. The surgery would be arranged in secret because the donor requested privacy. I thought it was Jessie. I believed it was Jessie. And I was wrong. Chapter 2, The Hero in the Shadows, and a Sickening Truth. On the day of the surgery, I didn't sleep a single minute. Jessie didn't reply to any of my messages. I figured she was just nervous, or maybe busy preparing for the operation. I didn't dare call, afraid I'd make her even more anxious. That night, I wandered through the hospital corridors worrying about Sienna, and praying that everything would go smoothly. The doctor only told me that the donor wants to remain anonymous and maintain absolute secrecy. After the surgery, Sienna was moved to the recovery room. When she woke up, she was so weak, but she still tried to smile and ask, "I won't be yellow anymore. Right, sis?" All I could do was nod my throat tight with emotion. That first night, I didn't sleep. I just sat by her bed watching her breathe, my heart overflowing with gratitude toward that mysterious liver donor. A few days later, the doctor told us the operation was a success. Sienna was responding well to the medication, her incision was healing quickly. But what was strange was that Jessie had completely disappeared. No calls, no texts. Even the doctor just shrugged when I asked. That's what the donor wanted to keep their identity completely secret, even from the patient's family. I kept telling myself, Jessie just wanted to avoid any family drama to stay away from all the headaches. I couldn't blame her, my family had treated her terribly. But things started getting weird when my mother suggested Sienna come stay at her house to rest. I thought, at least this time she's trying to be kind. I agreed, figuring I could use the time to pick up more shifts and save up for Sienna's post-op care. That afternoon, I went to pick Sienna up for her checkup. When I walked into my mother's house, I found Sienna passed out on the sofa, a total anomaly since she'd never napped, not even when she was really sick. Worried, I asked, is she okay? My mom just smiled, an oddly triumphant look on her face. She's fine. Look. Before I could react, my mom bent down and gently pulled down the waistband of Sienna's pants, exposing her abdomen. Right below her belly button, the surgical scar was still red, running in a straight horizontal line. My mom said, bursting with pride, "See, the donor is really special." Guess who my throat closed up? Before I could say anything, Harvey, my cousin, the one I'd spent my whole childhood trying to avoid, walked out of the kitchen. His smile sent chills down my spine. He put a hand on my shoulder, leaned in, and whispered, "Hey there. Aren't you gonna thank me? I just saved your sister's life." I backed away, frozen. Every memory of his touches, his secretive stares when I was a kid, came rushing back all at once. My mom stood there, eyes gleaming weirdly, her voice almost commanding. "You should be grateful. If it wasn't for Uncle Harvey, Sienna wouldn't have survived. Stop being so petty." Harvey looked at me, lips curled in a twisted grin. "Now Sienna will always carry a part of me inside her, just like you did back then." All I could do was scoop Sienna up in my arms and bolt out of that house, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. Every cell in my body screamed that I'd made a terrible mistake, trusting my mom, letting my guard down around Harvey. But worst of all, I knew this time I wouldn't let him destroy another child. Chapter 3: Ghosts of the Past and the First Signs. The days that followed felt like I was living in a dream, half awake, half dazed. I tried to appear strong in front of Sienna, but inside, I was just terrified, anxious, and consumed with self-loathing. Sienna changed in ways I couldn't ignore. She used to be so lively, always chattering, drawing, coloring, telling me about whatever silly thing was on her mind. Now she startled awake at night, her eyes red and puffy, clutching her pillow and trembling. One night, I woke up in the middle of the night and found her sitting curled up by the window, silently staring out into the darkness. Once I gently asked Sienna, "Is something making you sad?" She looked down, fidgeting with the fresh scar on her belly. "I dreamed about Uncle Harvey at the hospital. He kept touching my tummy, calling me his special girl." After saying it, she gripped my hand tightly and whispered, "I don't like him." Guilt washed over me. I tormented myself for letting Mom take Sienna away, for not keeping better control. I kept wondering what Harvey had done when it was just those two adults, with Sienna and me working myself to death, picking up extra shifts, scraping together money for her hospital bills. I tried to stay home with Sienna as much as I could, but life doesn't let you do that forever. I had to go to work. Every time I left, I'd write a note. "If you need anything, call me," and I checked the security cameras constantly. I even bought extra locks for Sienna's bedroom door. My mother kept texting and calling, insisting I had to let Sienna visit Harvey for regular health checkups. She even filed papers at the hospital naming Harvey as Sienna's medical guardian, claiming he's the donor so he has legal rights. It was absurd. Me, the big sister, the one who held Sienna through every night. She screamed in pain, was being pushed aside for a man who haunted my childhood. And when I refused, my mother started her campaign on Facebook. She posted that I was mentally unstable, that I was making things up, that I was keeping my sister away from her savior. Neighbors whispered, relatives sent messages, friends drifted away. Someone even commented publicly, "Is she spreading lies about another man in the family again?" I didn't know which hurt more, what Sienna was going through, or how completely alone I was becoming in my own family. Those days I lived like a ghost, reassuring my sister, battling an entire web of lies, prejudice, and apathy. But I knew one thing: Harvey wasn't finished. He would do whatever it took to get to Sienna. And this time, no matter what it cost, I would not let him win. Chapter 4. When Justice Doesn't Stand with the Weak. I used to think that if I just loved enough, tried hard enough, all the bad things would eventually fade away. But in my family, the truth is never that simple, especially when the villain wears the mask of a hero and the one who genuinely tries to protect gets shoved to the sidelines by the whole system. After my mother submitted the paperwork, Harvey was officially recognized as Sienna's medical guardian in the hospital records. That meant every decision about Sienna's medication checkups, even access to her medical information, had to be approved or directly handled by Uncle Harvey. The first time I was stopped at the pharmacy, unable to pick up Sienna's anti-rejection meds, it felt like a death sentence. The pharmacist said, "Sorry, only the medical guardian can collect this prescription." I had to call around everywhere before the hospital finally agreed to a one-time emergency release. At the same time, Harvey started showing up everywhere. At the hospital, charming the nurses, polite to the doctors. At Sienna's school, he dropped off treats, chatted with teachers, spun his liver donor journey like a personal PR campaign. He gave gifts to neighbors, donated to local charities. Everyone praised him, calling him the wonderful uncle. My mother seized every opportunity to tell the whole family that I was selfish, petty, jealous of the man who saved my sister's life. Soon, I became the number one gossip topic. She's paranoid. She just wants attention. Everything was fine until she started causing drama. Even my best friend Sarah, who truly cared about me, began to keep her distance. She needed a reference letter from my mother for a job at a big hospital. I understood, but it didn't stop me from feeling utterly isolated. Every day Sienna went to school, I was on edge, checking the cameras constantly. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart seized, dreading bad news about my little sister. The worst was the day I discovered Harvey was tracking both of us using the Find My iPhone feature on Sienna's iPad. He knew where we went, what we did, and when. When I checked, it was true. The location history matched every time. I'd spotted his car near our house, at the school gate, or waiting outside the supermarket. I was so furious, I burst into tears, but every piece of evidence I gathered, from photos of his car parked outside to the suggestive chat messages, was dismissed by my mother relatives and even the hospital's lawyer. He's just concerned as the organ donor. Don't blow things out of proportion. That's when I learned a bitter lesson in real life. Justice doesn't always side with the victims. Not when the perpetrator knows how to bribe, polish his image, and exploit the weaknesses of a system that's used to protecting the powerful, the wealthy, and those who play the part of the good guy. Sienna grew quieter by the day. Sometimes she'd look at me and ask, "Sis, if I stop taking my meds, will Uncle Harvey stop coming to our house?" All I could do was hold her tight and make promises I didn't even believe myself. That night, I looked at myself in the mirror and wondered, if things keep going like this, I'll lose Sienna and maybe lose myself too. I knew I had to change. I had to become someone else entirely. Tough enough, clever enough, ruthless enough, if I wanted to win back my sister's freedom from the sickness swallowing our family whole. And I promised myself, it's time to fight back, no matter what it costs. Chapter 5. Alone Among Wolves, and the Counterattack of the Powerless. I began the next days like an animal, cornered, desperate, and fierce. No one stood by me, no one believed me, no one I could rely on, not family, not friends. The only thing I had left was the instinct of a sister who refused to give up. I hid secret cameras in the living room in Sienna's bedroom, even placed a tiny recorder inside her stuffed animal. I knew if anyone found out, I could get sued for invasion of privacy. But there was no other way. Evidence was the only thing that could protect Sienna now, when everything I said was twisted, mocked, or turned into a joke online. My mother escalated her smear campaign. She set up a whole Facebook group, Pray for a Mother Slandered by Her Own Daughter, flooding it with photos, chat screenshots, and clips of my words cut and pasted into lunacy. Relatives, friends, old teachers, all jumped to defend Harvey, showering pity on the uncle who sacrificed part of his body to save his niece, but was repaid only with suspicion and disrespect. Once, when I took Sienna to pick up her meds at the local pharmacy, Harvey showed up. He stepped in, reached out, and touched Sienna's belly, right where the scar was. I instantly pulled her away, even though Sienna only whispered, "That hurt, Uncle." The pharmacy staff and everyone around just stared at me with suspicion as if I was a lunatic making drama out of a kind gesture. That evening, a video surfaced on Facebook of me pulling Sienna away from Harvey with the caption, "Mother forces daughter to lie about the uncle who saved her life." The comments poured in. What kind of person does this to a hero? This woman must be mentally unstable, like her mother said. Some even dug up my high school days, how I once accused Harvey, and no one believed me. Sarah, my only real friend, finally chose silence. She came over, gave me a brief hug, apologized, and admitted she couldn't take my side. My mother could ruin her career with a single phone call. Every night I pieced together evidence images of Harvey lurking near my house from security cameras, suggestive chat logs, Sienna's iPad location history, my notes chronicling every night. Sienna panicked, couldn't sleep, and drew pictures of faceless men. I sent all of it to lawyers, to child protection agencies, even anonymously posted on parent forums to warn the community. But it was all too weak against the wall of faith my mother and Harvey had built. The lawyer replied, "Only direct proof of abuse will make a judge intervene. Everything else is just suspicion and emotion." I started to feel the stigma, the coldness everywhere. At the supermarket, neighbors turned away. Some secretly snapped my photo and posted it to local crime watch groups. "Beware of this woman. She regularly spreads lies about her family." Kids at school whispered to Sienna, pushing her further into her shell. Sometimes I'd hear her mumble, "I wish I wasn't your sister." Sleepless night after night, I started doubting myself. Was I paranoid, clinging to painful memories everyone else had moved past? Or was I hurting Sienna more than Harvey ever could just by refusing to let go? But then I'd see the fear in her eyes, hear her sobbing when she woke up in the night, and I knew I wasn't crazy. I was just the only one left with enough pain and clarity to refuse to look away. I swore even if I was the only one left, standing against a pack of wolves, I would drag the truth into the light, and I started planning my counterattack, knowing the price I'd pay might be the rest of my life. Chapter 6. Switching Roles. When the victim sets the trap. At some point, fear turns into fire, and I realized I could no longer wait for justice from anyone but myself. I stopped watching Harvey with eyes full of resentment and started studying him like a predator, not prey. If he was so skilled at manipulating everyone with his fake morality, then I'd use those same tricks to expose him. I started acting friendlier with my mother. As much as I hated the fakery, I knew I had to play nice to regain even the slightest bit of her trust. I also made a point of talking to Harvey in front of crowds, appearing calm and unbothered, not hostile. The more confident he got, the more careless he became, bragging about his heroics and letting slip more details than he should. I found a way to get closer to Lisa, Harvey's new girlfriend, the one everyone in the family called sweet and sincere. During a staged, coincidental coffee meetup, I chatted with her about life work and gently about Sienna. Lisa told me that lately, Harvey had been staying over at my mother's house a lot, sometimes even overnight, with the excuse of monitoring Sienna's health. I saw a flicker of worry in Lisa's eyes as she described how Harvey kept looking at photos of Sienna's surgery scar on his phone and sometimes checked the location of me and my sister. She said one time he even told me I should teach Sienna to be grateful to the one who saved her life, not to pick up someone's habit of being ungrateful. In that moment, I understood Lisa wasn't naive. She was just trying to comfort herself, holding on to her faith in a man the entire family praised. That's when I started planning my trap. I bought a used iPhone, set up a new account, and left it in Sienna's room with an auto recording function. I also created a private cloud and silently synced photos and messages from Sienna's iPad to my personal computer just in case something suspicious ever happened. Meanwhile, I taught myself how to behave on camera, how to act in public calm, logical, always in control. No more panicking, no more snapping at my mom or coworkers. I became a clone of Harvey, but a clone with a mission. The turning point came late one night when Lisa texted me, "Sis, I know it feels like I'm betraying Harvey by telling you this, but I really can't keep quiet." Tonight I saw so many more pictures of Sienna on his phone than I expected. There were photos of her sleeping, close-ups of her scar, even some that were taken secretly in the bathroom. My blood ran cold. Lisa told me she'd backed up some of the photos to a private hard drive and was willing to give them to me if I promised not to tell anyone how she got them. I knew the time had come. Alone I could never beat Harvey and my mother, but with Lisa with these photos, I finally had a real shot to turn the tables. That night, for the first time in months, I slept deeply. I dreamed of Sienna running free in the park. No fear, no longer searching the shadows for someone who might be watching. And I told myself this time I will not lose, not for me, but for Sienna, for what's left of my family, and for the conscience I refuse to let go. Chapter 7. The Naked Truth in Court. On the day of the trial, I woke up early, though in truth I hadn't slept a wink all night. Not because I was afraid of losing, but because I was terrified I might not be able to protect Sienna one more time if things spun out of control. Family court is always especially cold. Long wooden benches, harsh white lights, the scent of air freshener mixed with the tension of dozens of families waiting for verdicts on their children's futures. I gripped Sienna's hand. She wore the purple dress her father bought her before he died, clutching her faded stuffed rabbit, her wide eyes full of longing and fear. My mother sat across the courtroom, caked in makeup, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief, looking every bit like the lead actress in her own personal tragedy. Beside her was Harvey, perfectly dressed in a tailored suit, face chiseled. If you didn't know the truth, you'd think he was the model of a devoted, loving uncle. Lisa sat in the back row, avoiding Harvey's gaze, but when I looked over, she gave me a small nod, quietly saying, "I'm not backing down." The hearing opened with a video of Sienna's testimony to a court-appointed psychologist. Her voice trembled but was clear. "Uncle Harvey often comes into my room when I'm sleeping. He takes pictures of my tummy. I'm scared. I don't want him to come anymore." The expert analyzed her story, was consistent, showed real fear, and wasn't the result of suggestion or coaching. I saw my mother lower her head, avoiding everyone's eyes. When it was my turn to testify, the questions centered on my relationship with Sienna, her post-surgery care, and why I suspected Harvey. I answered calmly, laying out all the evidence I'd gathered: location histories, security camera photos, chat logs between Lisa and me, photos copied from Harvey's phone, everything submitted to the court. Harvey's lawyer tried to twist every detail, digging up the past when I'd accused Harvey in high school, and no one believed me, arguing that I was paranoid, traumatized. Why didn't you call the police sooner? Why keep Sienna from her grandmother after surgery? Didn't you once thank Harvey in an email years ago for helping the family? I answered every question patiently, no tears, no shaking. I knew if I broke, now all my efforts would be for nothing. Then Harvey took the stand, playing the perfect, misunderstood hero. His voice quivered. "I only wanted to keep Sienna safe. I sacrificed a part of my own body, but my sister accused me, destroyed my reputation, tore the family apart." Then it was Lisa's turn. The room seemed to hold its breath. Lisa described in detail the photos, Harvey's disturbing obsession with Sienna, and the times she caught him secretly viewing the nursery camera feed from his phone. She presented the hard drive full of images enough to chill anyone with a conscience. Harvey's lawyer tried to paint her as a bitter ex, But digital evidence doesn't lie. Finally, the court's independent psychologist spoke. Their findings. Sienna displayed clear signs of trauma from prolonged psychological harm. Her testimony matched the sequence of events with no signs of adult suggestion. The influence of my mother and Harvey on Sienna's mental health was clearly negative. The judge allowed me a final statement. I asked for just one thing. Please let Sienna live as a normal child, free to grow up without the shadow of fear from her own family. The judge left to deliberate. 20 minutes passed, but to me it felt like a lifetime. I held Sienna close, heart pounding with hope, and dread would justice finally be on our side. The door opened. The judge entered, her gaze silencing every whisper in the room. She began to read the verdict. Chapter 8, When Justice Speaks, and The Price of Truth. The courtroom fell silent as the judge looked directly at me. She spoke slowly, each word hitting me like a hammer to the chest. This court acknowledges that Mr. Harvey has engaged in behavior inappropriate toward a minor, showing signs of violating privacy and causing prolonged psychological harm to Sienna. While the evidence is not yet sufficient for criminal conviction at this time, in consideration of the child's welfare and the risk of recurrence, the court rules. I gripped Sienna's hand so tightly I thought my heart might burst. That custody care and all decisions regarding Sienna's medical and educational needs are awarded to her biological mother. Harvey is prohibited from private contact and must stay at least 200 meters away from Sienna until she turns 18. All communication and visitation must be supervised by a third party. I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. I bowed my head, wrapped my arms around Sienna, and heard her whisper, "Sis, does this mean we get to go home?" Across the room, my mother broke down sobbing. She struggled to her feet, stumbling toward me, crying, "I'm sorry, I was just afraid of losing my granddaughter. I never meant for things to turn out like this." I looked at her, hurt, compassion, and exhaustion tangled inside me. I'd once wished she could love me, believe me, just once. Harvey lost all composure. He shouted, pointing at me and then at the judge, "You're destroying this family." I gave a part of myself. I'm the hero. I have rights. Security had to restrain him, dragging him out in a storm of curses and helpless fury, the kind that only comes when you know you've lost. Lisa burst into tears when the judge thanked her for her courage in testifying. She ran to hug me, whispering, "Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for saving Sienna and for saving me from my illusions about Harvey." Out in the hallway, I spotted my father, the man who'd left us years ago. He stood off to the side, unable to approach, his eyes full of regret. I just nodded slightly, feeling no anger, just fatigue and a sliver of empathy. Maybe everyone is weak sometimes, maybe we all take wrong turns. That day I left the courthouse, holding Sienna, surrounded by people who'd once turned their backs, now just quietly standing aside, unsure what to say. Lisa came with us. My mother stayed behind, her head, bowed, tears streaming down. I knew today's victory would leave scars in everyone's heart, but it was a necessary price so a child could finally grow up. 2 days later, Harvey was summoned by police. New evidence from Lisa's hard drive was enough to open a criminal case for privacy violation threats and child manipulation. My mother requested to visit Sienna, this time at the supervised center. She brought a box of colored pencils, promising to try to rebuild from scratch, starting with the smallest things. I knew this battle wasn't truly over. The verdict was only the beginning, a new chapter for Sienna, for me, for anyone brave enough to face the truth. That night, for the first time in months, I saw Sienna sleep, soundly clutching her stuffed rabbit, no more flinching, no more nightmares. I sat by her bed, stroked her hair, and cried tears not of pain, but of relief and gratitude. In the end, I kept my promise to my sister. Even if I had to pay with my youth, my reputation, and my peace, I would never regret it. Chapter 9. Healing. After the storm, and the scars no one sees. After the trial, I thought everything would finally be easier. But the truth is, the journey to recovery was just beginning. Sienna transferred to a new school in a different neighborhood where no one knew what had happened to our family. I moved us into a small, cozy apartment, warm and quiet. No more nosy neighbors, no more gossip behind our backs every time we stepped outside. Every morning, I took Sienna to school, then came home to rest or work online, instead of those endless, exhausting shifts I used to pull. Slowly, Sienna's smile began to return, but I realized a child who has survived a nightmare will never be as carefree as other kids. Sometimes she still had nightmares, still clung to me in the middle of the night, still whispered, "Sis, if Uncle Harvey gets out of jail, will he be able to find us?" I patiently took Sienna to see a therapist every week. Those sessions could be long. Sometimes we both cried. Sometimes we just sat in silence, learning to accept that being hurt wasn't something to be ashamed of. I also started therapy for myself after years of just running from my own pain. One day, Jessie called and said she'd come visit. She showed up with a bag of pastries looking brighter than she had when the whole family turned their backs. Jessie wasn't just the one who saved Sienna. In her darkest moment, she became a new anchor for both of us. Whenever I was busy, Jessie helped pick up Sienna, took her out to play, or just sat drawing and chatting with her about silly, childish things. Sienna called Jessie her miracle aunt, and Lisa after everything bravely broke up with Harvey and chose to start over. She sent me a short message. "Thank you for waking me up before it was too late." Later, Lisa let me know she was pregnant. She decided to be a single mom, and I promised I'd always be there if she needed me. My mother, for her part, kept requesting to visit Sienna through the supervised center. At first, those meetings were awkward, full of stilted conversation and forced laughter, but gradually I saw my mom begin to truly listen and really understand Sienna's fear and pain. Once she broke down in the middle of a visit, hugging Sienna and sobbing, "I'm sorry I didn't protect you. I'll try to learn everything over again if you'll forgive me. I'm not sure if the wounds between me and my mother will ever fully heal, but at least we've started over grounded in truth and honest regret." Even my father, silent for so many years, reached out. He asked to meet us, brought a therapist, and began to open up about things he'd kept hidden. I don't blame him anymore. I understand now in families like mine, nobody's always strong, and everyone has their moments of weakness. I gradually picked up work at the hospital again, switching to night shifts to avoid judgmental stares. Some coworkers offered support, some kept their distance, but I no longer cared. My biggest priority is Sienna. Every meal, every night's sleep, every smile, every small victory on her road to recovery. On weekends, Jessie, Sienna, and I go to the park together. I love watching my little sister run, climb the slide, laugh out loud, sometimes lift her shirt to check on her fading scar, then turn to shout, "Sis, I can run faster than the wind. Now I know it'll be a long time before Sienna is truly healed." But with each day, the scars inside both of us are shrinking little by little. I'm learning to forgive myself, my mother, my family, not because they deserve it, but because I need peace to keep moving forward. Some wounds are invisible, only those who lived through them truly understand. But I believe when we're brave enough to face them and love enough to never turn away from the truth, those wounds can become our strength. Chapter 10: Endings and New Beginnings. When truth becomes freedom. Maybe I'll never truly go back to being who I was before everything that happened, but I understand now that the loss, the pain, the fear, and every sacrifice, they were the necessary price for Sienna's freedom and for my own. Many nights I sit by the window, looking out at the city lights, reflecting on everything we've been through. There was a time when I felt I had nothing left lost. My family, lost friends, lost faith in justice and even in love itself. But every morning when I wake up and see Sienna sleeping peacefully, I know it was all worth it. I used to believe that truth would always win out on its own, that if I was strong and persistent enough, everyone would eventually see right from wrong. But life isn't that simple. Sometimes it's the truth itself that hurts most, and having the courage not to look away, not to hide, is the greatest victory of all. My family is no longer whole, but those who remain are the ones brave enough to face the truth. Jessie has become an irreplaceable part of our lives. She doesn't need anyone's forgiveness, but she brought hope to Sienna when the rest of the family turned their backs. Lisa found the strength to start over as a single mother, learning to love herself and her child. My father, though late, came back, trying to rebuild the bond that fear once broke. As for my mother, though she'll never regain my full trust, she's doing her best to make amends by listening, admitting her mistakes, and starting over, slowly and patiently, as if tending to a wound that just won't heal. Sienna grows stronger every day. Sometimes she'll proudly show her scar to new friends, calling it her superhero mark proof that she's overcome something bigger than most kids ever face. I watch her proud, not because the scar has faded, but because her spirit never broke. I no longer wish for the past, nor do I hold grudges against those who turned away. I've learned to be grateful for everyone who came into our lives, everyone who left, and even those who were only there for a moment, to remind me that sometimes you have to risk your whole little world to save just one life. Justice in the end isn't just a verdict. Justice is having the strength not to stay silent, the persistence not to give up, and the grace to forgive but never forget. I've lost so much, but I've found my courage, my peace, and a real family, small perhaps, but filled with love and honesty. If anyone reading this has ever lived through darkness like I have, I just want you to know you're not alone. Truth won't magically bring you happiness, but it is the first step to freeing yourself from fear. Don't stop fighting, because one day you'll see that even scars can blossom into something beautiful. And for me, maybe this story isn't truly over yet, but at the very least, Sienna and I have found freedom, and that is the most precious thing I've ever won. After everything I've realized, this justice doesn't always come from a courtroom, and the truth doesn't always bring comfort. But if I had to choose again, I would still step into this fight because my sister deserves freedom, deserves happiness without living in fear. My family may never be the same. I may have lost so much: my reputation, my peace, my faith in those I once called my own. But I've held on to the most precious thing of all. Sienna gets to be herself, and I found the courage not to turn away from the truth. If you're still trapped in the dark, believe me, you are not alone. Don't stop fighting. Scars do heal, and the truth, no matter how painful, is the very first key to unlocking your own freedom. Thank you for listening to my story.